This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu opens the door to annex Jewish communities in Israel's biblical heartland. Plus, Israel takes on the coronavirus, from developing a new vaccine to a state-of-the-art hand-washing appliance. And despite the coronavirus, Israel celebrates 72 years since its founding. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. 100 years ago on April 25th, world leaders ratified the establishment of a Jewish state after 2,000 years. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu used the occasion to call for annexing Jewish communities in the biblical heartland of Israel. It's his first major announcement after agreeing to a unity government with Benny Gantz. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated he believes Israel can annex parts of what the world calls the West Bank.
3 months ago, the Trump peace plan recognized Israel's rights in all of Judea and Samaria. And President Trump pledged to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Jewish communities there and in the Jordan Valley. A couple of months from now, I'm confident that that pledge will be honored, that we will be able to celebrate another historic moment in the history of Zionism. A century after San Remo, the promise of Zionism is being realized.
Netanyahu delivered his comments as part of a special program marking the 100th anniversary of the signing of the San Remo Resolution.
San Remo recognized a fundamental truth. The Jewish people are not foreign colonialists in the land of our forefathers. The land of Israel is our ancestral homeland.
100 years ago on April 25th, 1920, representatives of the great powers who triumphed in World War I met in the Italian town of San Remo. They divided the Middle Eastern lands they conquered, and for the first time in nearly 2,000 years, they called for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in an area called Palestine. The European Coalition for Israel sponsored the 100th anniversary program that included letters from world leaders like U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who wrote that historic agreement marked the world's embrace of the unbreakable connection of the Jewish people to the land of Israel.
For the first time ever, we have world leaders officially recognizing the importance of this landmark event. And I believe once we get the historical facts right, the legal facts right, we also have a better prospect for finding a peaceful solution in the Middle East region.
Turning to the coronavirus, was the nearly global lockdown necessary? Researchers from Hebrew University feel that based on real-life data, Israel and other countries could have controlled COVID-19 without a lockdown.
In many countries, if you have the population behave in a responsible way, I mean, face masks, hygienic measures, some social distancing, like 1 or 2 meters from each other, then in this situation, sometimes you can avoid lockdowns and you can basically have the economy continue without the need to stop everything.
Israel's fight against COVID-19 has just received a major shot in the arm from Our Crowd, one of Israel's leading investment organizations. This could be a major step in finding a vaccine for the world. 2 months ago, as COVID-19 began taking its grip on the world, CBN News reported on the research and development of a vaccine by the Migdal Research Institute.
We've reached a winning formula for vaccination of poultry, which worked very, very nicely.
The Institute's work toward that poultry vaccine started in 2016, which gave Migdal a 4-year head start against this sickness because it's similar to the human virus.
So we're now backing this project, and we're just beyond ourselves in terms of hope and optimism that this kind of project coming out of Israel's Galilee can bring potentially very, very good news to the world.
Jonathan Medved, founder of Our Crowd, held their annual summit just before the pandemic. He chose to fund this research under a new company called MigVax. He says its formula brings a number of advantages.
This is not their first rodeo. They've been working on a variety of coronavirus-related vaccines in this area now for some time. But on top of that, this is an oral vaccine, which is pretty much unique in terms of the other candidates that are out there. It doesn't require a shot. It'll work in hot climates in parts of Africa, because we need a vaccine for everybody. It doesn't use actually live virus or dead virus in the vaccine. So people who are immunocompromised, who are afraid of catching it, don't have to worry about taking a vaccine that has small attenuated amounts.
Medved says his organization has been on a mission since the pandemic began.
My problem is, I told my wife when it started, I said, we'll get some quality time together, right? That hasn't worked out, okay? I've been working harder than ever before. We're working globally, so we go often to 2 or 3 in the morning and then back at it in the AM. And I'll tell you, it keeps you young, it keeps you motivated, it keeps you excited.
He says it's all part of Israel's biblical calling.
I feel very much that we're all here for a purpose. And the purpose of Israel renewed, Israel rebuilt, Israel established not just as a strong member of the family of nations, is that we are supposed to do this stuff. Okay, we are supposed to be out there working on cures for cancer and to feed the world and to cure and prevent the coronavirus. This is our calling, and our ability at our crowd to help support these brave entrepreneurs and to link them to supporters and investors around the world, it doesn't get better than that.
Medved hopes other investors will join the effort.
And what's great about it is it's democratic, so that any of your viewers who meet the criteria of accredited investors worldwide can now join together with us and fund this important development and hopefully profit from the results.
Coming up, Israeli innovation, a smart hygiene device that's changing the way people wash their hands.
It was not my grace, but God, that I might come to the Irish nations to preach the gospel.
Now available from CBN Films, I Am Patrick. Get your DVD for a gift of $15 or more. What brings you back, Roman?
People thought that this mission was crazy, that his efforts to Christianize Ireland were doomed to failure.
From slave to missionary.
Who among you heeds the call?
Why would this man put himself in danger among enemies who do not know God?
From sinner to saint.
Patrick's story began a chain of events that is quite remarkable in the impact that it had.
I am Patrick.
Those are the words that begin the history of Ireland.
I Am Patrick. Get your DVD of this inspiring documentary today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
We've been told from the beginning of this COVID crisis about the importance of properly washing our hands. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Staal looks at an Israeli innovation that will show you just how well you're doing.
It's called Soapy, a smart hygiene device designed to change the way people wash their hands.
So we're giving you the right environment to wash your hands and the right technology to do it. We're giving you feedback on how your hand washing practice was.
CEO Max Simonovsky helped start Soapy 2 years ago, focusing on India and other developing countries. Then word started spreading.
We suddenly started to receive inquiries from the developed countries like US and Canada and England.
The COVID-19 crisis led to even more interest, with 136 countries calling about the product.
Majority of the, I would say, guidelines or advices about how to prevent yourself from being infected is about hygiene, sanitation, and social distance. And hand hygiene is on the top.
This is the Soapy Machine. When I put my hands in, it gives me just the right amount of soap that I need and gives me 20 seconds to lather my hands, making sure I get all the right movements, get in between my fingers, my nails, all the things I need to have clean hands. It's monitoring how well I've washed my hands and how well I'm rinsing my hands, and it gives me another 20 seconds worth of water to rinse them. All right, here we go. Let's see how I did.
And you can see that we measured how your lathering technique and how was your rinsing technique. And on the lathering, you had 13 out of the 20 seconds done perfectly. And on the rinsing, 17 out of the 20 seconds were done perfectly. The result is 77%.
According to experts, people should wash their hands up to 12 times a day, but most only reach about half that number.
Maybe 5 to 7% of people washing hands properly. Even if you take those 5-6 times that you're washing your hands, most of them will be a bad washing cycle.
By using facial recognition, the machine assigns a random number to each user. Simonovsky said it doesn't gather any information about you other than how you wash your hands. Then Soapy teaches you how to do it better.
So you know right away where you can improve and what you need to improve to increase that result and make sure that your hands will be clean every time, everywhere, every day.
The device is also good for the environment, using about 20 times less water.
And the water is preheated to the right temperature. So we're also saving on electricity.
Last year, before the COVID-19 outbreak, Forbes magazine wrote, "By gamifying hand washing, Soapy might just save civilization." Currently, the machine is used primarily in healthcare, schools, and food preparation. Simonovsky adds they're working on a product for the public because hand washing just isn't as simple as it seems.
It's a real science. And if you have a real science, then you need to have a technology to help you with that.
Julie Staal, CBN News, Rehovot, Israel.
Up next, Israelis celebrate their Independence Day 72 years after the modern state of Israel was born.
Now, for a limited time, you can get 5 of CBN's critically acclaimed documentaries. Experience the rebirth of the modern state of Israel.
The historic bond between the Jewish people and the land of Israel
cannot be broken.
Relive the battle for Jerusalem in the Six-Day War.
Jerusalem is yours, forever.
Discover how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
When people need us, we volunteer and we come and help.
Explore the world of Israeli technological innovation.
We're people of dreams. God gives us dreams. And that's really the roots, I think, of much of our innovation.
And understand the biggest land dispute in history.
Many Palestinian Arabs claim that the Jews stole Arab land. But is that the real story?
This exclusive Israel DVD collection can be yours for a gift of $40 or more. Call now or go online to get your Israel DVD bundle today.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times best-selling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD, only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Despite the coronavirus, Israelis celebrated their Independence Day, but in a very different way this year. Israelis were ordered to stay home, so no public barbecues and the parks were empty. And instead of the traditional Air Force flyover, the Israeli jets flew over the country's hospitals to honor healthcare workers who have laid down their lives to serve the public during the COVID-19 crisis. Well, 72 years ago, it was a different scene when a declaration signed in a Tel Aviv art gallery changed the world forever. Against overwhelming odds, this fledgling state of Israel not only survived, but grew beyond expectation. CBN Scott Ross looks back at that moment, along with someone who was actually there. It's also part of our virtual tour that you can see on our Facebook page.
הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל היא מדינת ישראל.
Here in Independence Hall, David Ben-Gurion declared the birth of the modern state of Israel. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people had a nation.
He chose the words, "We hereby declare the establishment," it says here, "of a Jewish state in the land of Israel to be known as the state of Israel." This was the birth of a Jewish state, as for all Jews. Ben-Gurion was standing here as the voice of 11 million Jews around the world who had no voice, who had no address, and nowhere to go to.
I spoke with Isaac Dror, who leads the education effort here.
It was promised to us by God. We are the only people in the history of the world that live on the same land, speak in the same language, and believe in the same God more than 3,000 years.
We're in a historic setting here. Where are we and what happened?
This is the room where the Jewish state of Israel was born 70 years ago. In this tiny room with these same furnitures, a ceremony that lasted 32 minutes and shook the world.
As British rulers left Israel that day, 5 Arab armies invaded.
So it's like when you mix the happiest day for the Jewish people, one of the greatest moments for our nation in modern times, with one of the most dangerous and sad days when Israel was that close to a complete annihilation.
Why this building? Why here? Why Tel Aviv?
This building was simply the safest auditorium in the city of Tel Aviv.
Who were the people that were here?
Most of them people from around Tel Aviv, because they could not invite people from Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was disconnected. Only 350 of them were lucky enough to be squeezed in the room with no air conditioning.
And among the crowd of witnesses was Yael Sharet.
Her father was on the stage here, Moshe Sharet. He was the right hand of Ben-Gurion. and the kind of the foreign minister of the provisional government of Israel. And when they came to the ceremony, they came with an invitation. And it says here, we are honored to invite you to the ceremony of independence. And then it goes, we ask you to keep it as a secret.
Really?
You don't want thousands of people to swarm the street when you expect an air raid later that day. And then it says the invitation is personal, like come alone. And here you have Mr. Moshe Sharet, who brought his daughter with him. And not only his daughter, but his sister as well. And Moshe Sharet said they will share the same chair.
I met Yael Sharet Medini at her home near Tel Aviv.
Here's my aunt, and this is my forehead. Hopefully there's something behind it, as I say. And we share the chair there, next to the wall.
She told me how just the day before, her father dictated and Yael wrote a draft of the Declaration of Independence.
This is my father's version of the Declaration. The one that he dictated to me, this is my handwriting. This is a photocopy of the original. Yeah. The original is in the archive.
And this took you how long?
I think I sat there about 3/4 of an hour to an hour.
Yael simply calls herself a handmaiden of history. Well, how old were you?
17 and a half. I wasn't interested in this. I knew that this is what's going to happen from the age of 0, that we are going to have a state and we are rightfully here.
During that time, she and her family lived in New York, where her father would scour the United Nations, convincing countries to support the soon-to-be-born state. Do you remember the event itself when Ben-Gurion stood up and read?
It's epic. It's really epic. It's poetry, actually. The only time I was really moved, I must say, was when the Rabbi Levine made the old age Jewish blessing, Shechianu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
That ancient Jewish prayer, recited on momentous occasions, thanks God who has given us life, sustained us, and allowed us to reach this day.
I'm not religious, but this blessing has an echo of generations.
Did you sing?
Hatikva, yes. And then everybody stood up, and it was the anthem, the national anthem.
The very next day, which was the Sabbath, President Harry Truman became the first world leader to recognize Israel.
The Pentagon and the State Department truly believed that Ben-Gurion, the leader of Israel, is leading the world into a new catastrophe. One person, however, thought differently. His name was Harry Truman. He understood something that most of his top advisors and ministers failed to see. This is truly a prophecy being realized.
70 years later, it's clear that Truman was right.
We are faster, better, prettier than ever today. The economy of Israel is doing wonderfully well, what they call a startup nation. And now we see Israel standing, and thanks God, together with the Americans, in the spirit of those countries who are leading. Suddenly people understand why we are here.
Scott Ross for CBN in Tel Aviv.
Up next, counting the Omer and Pentecost. We'll examine the connection when we come back.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
After Passover, the Bible tells the Jewish people to count 49 days until Shavuot or Pentecost. And there's also a significance for Christians. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Staal takes a look.
It's known as counting the Omer, found in Leviticus 23, where it says, "From the day after the Sabbath, Passover, the day you brought the sheaf or Omer of the wave offering, count off 7 full weeks, count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th Sabbath."
It's a link. Think of a chain. The Omer connects Passover to Shavuot. It's an unbreakable chain, and there's an important spiritual lesson in this for us. It teaches us that salvation is both redemption, what took place at Passover, but it's also the indwelling of God's Spirit, empowering us to walk out that salvation.
An Omer was a unit of measure used for grain in Bible times.
So the Omer is counted every night after the evening prayers of Ma'ariv. We will say the Omer together. We'll say the day and the week and the time, and we'll acknowledge that. And then we'll read a text from Psalm chapter 67.
Boaz Michael from First Fruits of Zion says the Omer would have been counted this way in the time of Jesus, and his disciples would have prayed the traditional reading of Psalm 67 prophetically. It says that your way may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations, and all the nations of the earth shall fear him.
So by counting the Omer, we're thinking about, we're reflecting upon not only what took place at Passover just a few weeks ago, but we're leading up to a time in which God gave us his Torah, his instructions, his will, and his wisdom in order that we may be that saved, redeemed people that he set us free to be.
The Bible says that on Shavuot, known as the Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, the Holy Spirit was poured out. Jewish people celebrate this day as the day when God gave the law to Moses.
What takes place in Shavuot and Pentecost? The Spirit comes down, the nations are represented, and the message was that God's salvation is not just for the Jewish people, but it's for all nations. And that's what took place in Acts chapter 2, was a fulfillment in many ways of this prayer that the Jewish people have prayed and continue to pray, that all nations, all people will know God and his instructions and his ways.
Julie Staal, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, actually, Pentecost took place just behind me on Mount Zion here in Jerusalem. It's a reminder of what happened nearly 2,000 years ago with the birth of the church that transformed the world. If you'd like to know more about Pentecost, you can go to CBN.com. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.